You have built AI projects, you have GitHub repos, you know what RAG is, you have used LangChain, maybe you have even fine-tuned something, and you're still not getting shortlisted. That's not bad luck. That's not a numbers game. That's a specific fixable problem with how you're representing what you built, and honestly, sometimes what you chose to build in the first place. This video is about that. It is not about motivation, not some generic resume tips. It is the actual thing that is gonna make your resume 2x better. Here's what's happening in most students' heads. You see that every company wants AI engineers. You build an AI project. You put it in your resume, you apply, and then nothing comes. And the instinct is to think, okay, maybe I need more projects, or a better GitHub README, or maybe I should have used a different model. No. The problem is earlier than that. Recruiters and engineers reviewing your resume are not impressed by the fact that you are using ChatGPT 4. Everyone has used ChatGPT 4. Half the projects in any shortlist pile look exactly the same. What they are actually trying to figure out when they read your project section is, does this person think and act like an engineer? Or did they just follow a tutorial from YouTube and rename the output? And most projects answer that question wrong before they even finish reading the first line. Look at this one. AI project using LangChain and OpenAI API built a conversational chatbot that answers user queries using retrieval augmented generation. Tech stack is Python, LangChain, Fires, Streamlit. That's it. That's the whole description. Now pause for a second and go check if yours also looks like this. And I'll wait. The problem isn't the project. RAG chatbots are fine. The problem is description tells me nothing about you as an engineer. It tells me what libraries you imported. That's it. A library import list is not a project description. Here is another one. The person tried harder. They added a line about the tech and even mentioned performance. Sentiment analysis model, fine-tuned BERT for sentiment analysis on product reviews, achieved 91% accuracy on test set using Hugging Face transformers and deployed on AWS. Now this feels better, right? It has a metric, 91% accuracy. But here's the thing, 91% on what data set compared to what baseline? Was the dataset balanced? Because 91% on an imbalanced dataset where 90% of the reviews are positive is literally just the model saying positive every time. The metric is there, but it's hollow. And the engineer reading this will obviously notice this. One more, this one's the most common trap. Built a full stack application with AI features, integrated OpenAI API for text summarization, front-end in React, back-end in Fast API. Now this one is not even an AI project. This is a web app that calls an API. There is no engineering judgment here. You didn't build anything AI related. You used a product someone else built. That's fine for a side project, but don't put it in your resume section and call it an AI project. Interviewers will ask you about the model architecture and you'll have nothing to say. So, what is the real pattern across all of these? The first mistake is describing what the project is instead of what problem it solves and what you had to figure out. Nobody cares that you built a chatbot. They care about what was hard about it, what broke, what decisions you made, and why. The second mistake is adding metrics that don't mean anything. Metrics are great, but metric without context is worse than having no metric at all. Because it signals that you don't understand what the metric is measuring. If you say 91% accuracy, you need to say on what compared to what baseline and why that matters. Alright? Now, the third mistake, and this one is the one nobody talks about, is picking projects that have no opinion in them. An opinion in a project means you made a technical decision that wasn't obvious and you can defend it. You chose Fires or ChromaDB for a specific reason. You chose to fine tune instead of prompt engineer because of X. You chunked documents in a certain way, and here's why that mattered for retrieval quality. Now, the project without opinions look like tutorials because they usually are most of the times. And here's the thing that's actually counterintuitive. A slightly worse performing project where you clearly understood the trade-offs is more impressive than high performing project where you clearly just ran the default settings. Engineers can tell the difference in about 30 seconds. Alright, this is the part I actually want you to take away from this video because this applies before you even start building, not just when you are writing your resume. When you pick an AI project, ask yourself three things. First, is there a real data problem here? Not like I'll use some dataset from Kaggle. A real data problem means that data is messy, unstructured, domain specific, or hard to get. That's where actual engineering decisions happen, all right? That's what you talk about in interviews. Second, is there a product question underneath the technical one? The best AI projects are ones where you have to think about what good even means, right? Not just model accuracy, but what does the user actually wants or user actually needs? And how do you measure that? And this is what separates someone from who thinks like a product engineer from someone who just runs notebooks, right? Now, third, can you point to a specific decision you made that someone else might have not made, or they might have used some different approach? If you cannot, you probably followed the tutorial too closely, and that's what it sounds like to a recruiter. All right. Now, for positioning, when you write about the project, the structure I'd suggest is one line on what the problem was and why it was non-trivial. All right. One line on the approach you chose and the key decisions in it. One line on the result with a real metric or observable outcome. And if it is deployed and it has users, then say that. All right. That's 4 lines. It's not long, but every line is doing some work. Here's the other thing. If you are building AI projects anyway, you should be building them at an intersection of something you'd actually use or sell. Because then you are not just doing it for a resume line. All right. You are building a product, and I built something that has 50 users is 10 times more impactful than I built something and it has 93% accuracy. It tells me that you shipped something, you've got a feedback, and you iterate it. And that's what companies are hiring for. Now, let me show you what this looks like when it is done right. Same basic project, a RAG based document assistant. Document QA system for legal contracts. Build a retrieval system to answer questions over long legal documents, where standard chunking degraded answer quality on clause level queries. So implemented a hybrid chunking strategy combining semantic and structural boundaries. Reduced hallucination rate by 40% on an internal evaluation set of 200 annotated QA pairs. Deployed as a fast API service, currently used by 3 law students for exam preparation. Now read that again. There is a specific problem. Standard chunking didn't work well on this type of document. There's a specific decision. Hybrid chunking combining semantic and structural boundaries. There's a real metric with context. 40% reduction on an annotated evaluation set they built themselves, and it's deployed with actual users. Now here's another one, sentiment analysis, same technical area as the bad example earlier. Domain specific sentiment classifier for Indian e-commerce reviews. Fine-tuned Distilbert on a custom dataset of 8,000 labeled reviews scrapped from Flipkart, where standard English sentiment models failed on English text. Outperformed Zero Shot GPT 3.5 by 18 points on F1 on an OOT test set. Dataset and model card published on Hugging Face. Now, the Hugging Face published is a tiny detail, but it signals that the person thinks about the reproducibility and sharing work. And that's an engineering value, not just a task. Here is what I want you to do right now. Not tomorrow, not weekend, today, right now. Open your resume, go to your project section. For each project, ask yourself, if an engineer asked me, what was the hardest technical decision you made here and why? Could I answer that in 60 seconds? If the answer is no, you don't have a resume problem, you have a project depth problem, and the fix is to go back to that project and actually dig into it. Reread what you built, question your own choices. There's almost always something worth talking about, and you just didn't surface it. If the answer is yes, then write that answer. That's your project description. The resume is just the evidence of what you already understand. If the understanding is there, the words will follow. If it is not, no amount of rewording can fix it. Alright? So go check. I'm saying it seriously. Check it right now. If this was helpful, I've got more stuff like this coming soon on this channel. Just the things I wish someone had told me earlier. Alright, see you in the next one. Till then, keep learning or keep building something. I am watching you.